Greetings, my good bitches. The name's Francis, Coke Francis. I'm an editor, Twitch streamer, drag artist, and I'm here because I can finally put my film degree to some kind of use. For as much as I rip on Ben Shapiro and all the other film industry rejects over at the Daily Wire, there is a teeny tiny corner of my cold gay heart that does feel a degree of empathy for them. And that's because I've lived it myself. Even if you go to school for it, they really do not prepare you for the amount of rejection you face in the film industry, or the mass layoffs, or the corporate mergers, or the overworking and underpaying, or the overseas labor outsourcing because Hollywood is too expensive to film in now, or that soulless executives will happily replace you with a robot because they are not actually human and therefore do not understand the humanity and art that goes into filmmaking. And most of all, that your student discount for Adobe Creative Suite expires way sooner than you think. Now, when I first started this channel, I began a series called Apparently the Daily Wire Makes Movies Now, where I roasted these scowling nerds' attempts at mainstream entertainment. Dead Domain has been carrying the torch of savagely reviewing every new pile of slop they churn out, including a weird Christian Game of Thrones ripoff that feels more like a middle school Easter play that's only manageable on at least 30 milligrams. Because, my good bitches, none of them ever found success in mainstream entertainment. So they do not understand how to run a production company, let alone an entire streaming platform. But despite 25% of their staff being laid off, their children's entertainment division being shut down entirely, and hiring a bankruptcy lawyer, as history teaches us, fascists who are rejected from the arts will continue to make it everyone else's problem. The Daily Wire is known for rehabilitating and providing a safe space for problematic celebrities who are simply misunderstood in today's wild world of wokeness, essentially creating a ragtag group of grifters, bigots, racists, and anyone else blacklisted from Hollywood for entirely reasonable reasons. Just because those libs won't hire you after you and harassed your ex-girlfriends doesn't mean we won't, Jonathan Majors. You can have a spot at our lunch table now that Candace Owens is gone. Have you met our producer, Dallas Sonnier? He's making our latest movie that you can totally star in. No, of course he won't care about that.
Do you really though, baby? Do you really?
Yes.
Then how dare you come home drunk and disturb the peace of our house when we have a plan?
Trust me, Dallas has seen this plenty of times and has never had an issue with it. You should see his last business partner. Homie looks like Subway Jared if he actually worked at a Subway. He, also raped a kid. So, anyway, you in? Narrator. He was, in fact, in. As for the film industry at large, the soulless ghouls who call themselves executives continue to rule over us, which is why I do this, leading to seemingly endless labor strikes. When I say studio execs aren't human, I'm not exaggerating. If you want an example of just how truly evil and vile they are, during the writer's strike of 2023, I was working in post-production on a major TV show. Our writers were out striking, and our producers actually joined them in solidarity. And rather than negotiating with the talented, hard-working artists who pay for their multi-million-dollar mansions, these inhuman executives had two proposals: pushing these people to the brink of losing their homes, and threatening to cut down the trees they were standing under for shade. At this point, burning down a warehouse in Ontario, California is the moderate position, and these are the so-called liberal major studios that the Daily Wire rails against. So you can only imagine the Wire's response when IATSE called for a strike against their current production. Luckily, we don't have to imagine, because Deadline just dropped a bombshell article about the absolute dumpster fire that they call a film set. And as a former film major who makes a living doing this, the jokes write themselves. But before we laugh at this shit show together, a brief word from our sponsor and our devilishly handsome host. So let's say you're a sheep. It's been a good day working at your sheep-owned business, and you decide to try out that restaurant for sheep you've heard about. It's vegan, it's organic, it's pasture to table only. So one day on your lunch break, you head over to the sheep restaurant, you walk up to the counter and order your sheep lunch, and you can't believe what you're seeing. A wolf at the cash register dressed in your clothes. You realize this isn't the safe space for sheep you thought it was. It's just a front for wolves to take your hard-earned sheep money. There's a reason you wouldn't let wolves run a restaurant for sheep. Just like there's a reason why Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. When John Morgan's brother Tim suffered a catastrophic injury while working at Disney World, the mishandling of Tim's case led John to believe that the system was rigged against financially struggling families like his. In a world of sheep businesses run by wolves, John vowed to protect the powerless against powerful interests, creating a law firm that emphasizes helping clients who might otherwise get shortchanged, and most importantly, doing so with compassion, transparency, and no upfront fees. Today, Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm, with more than 1,000 lawyers and 100 offices nationwide. With a proven track record of fighting for the people for over 35 years, Morgan & Morgan knows a thing or two about fighting to get you the compensation that you deserve, with over $30 billion recovered for their clients. If you're injured because of someone else's negligence, you deserve to get paid, and their fee is free unless they win a case. Not all law firms are the same, so if you're ever injured or in an accident, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. You can start your claim now by clicking the link in the description, by scanning the QR code right next to my very handsome face, or by going to forthepeople.com/queen. And with that, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Also, really quick before we start, I just want to give a tremendous thank you to everyone who donated to my friend Bobby's campaign, or who even just shared the link. We were able to make a lot of progress towards his goal within just the first 48 hours of me telling you guys about it, and we really appreciate your help. I've been talking about it on my community tab for the past couple weeks. I'm also promoting a fundraiser for my new friend Rawya and her 5 children, who have also been feeling the brunt of the genocide in Gaza. Thanks to you all, we were able to supply them with food and rent money for the near future, and I'm just so unbelievably grateful to have such kind and generous fans who showed love to this beautiful family, especially during such a financially difficult time worldwide right now. We do still have a fair bit of way to go before we reach her goal, so if you haven't donated yet, or you'd like to share the link to her Chuffed campaign, I've included the link in the description. All funds go directly to food and resources, shelter, healthcare, and education for her 5 amazing kiddos. Thank you all again so goddamn much. Thank you for supporting the people of Gaza and for advocating for a free Palestine. Now let's make fun of Ben Shapiro's eyebrows together.
What? It's just an ordinary crabby. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I know. There are a lot of people on the left, on X, and they're very upset about this.
Loretta Scott King. You know who that is? That's Martin Luther King's wife. Michelle Obama. Barack Obama's wife.
I know, I'm not, I shouldn't have gone out, I'm
No,
sorry.
And if you're upset now, wait until you see this film. Your heads are going to explode.
Speaking of heads, Ben went from complaining about gender-neutral Mr. Potato Head to becoming one himself. It should also be noted that the title of this video is Listen Up You Whiny Bitches, presented by a 40-year-old virgin who burned Barbie dolls for money. So let's just say there's a larger cultural conversation around Jonathan Majors, or any celebrity of color really, acting in a Daily Wire movie that's being filmed in the antebellum South. And it's also a conversation that's best explained by somebody who's actually connected to it, which is why the jive-ass white motherfucker you see before you is gonna shut up for a minute and let Foreign Fridays explain it better than I ever possibly could.
And then allowing them to help me, do the work, The work would be whatever the gal you strangle says it to be. When Ben Shapiro says that Jonathan Majors was cancelled, I'm telling you, the people that fund the Daily Wire do not know who Jonathan Majors is. So now they're going to care about Jonathan Majors the same way that they cared about Nikki for a second, because they are useful tokens to be spent. Majors still found it fit to go to Shapiro and make a Django Rechained. Even Megan Good ain't good enough to get you on a Tyler Perry type thing. No, you go on straight to Shapiro.
And so, Jonathan Majors joined the Daily Wire's island of cancelled misfit toys, joining other fading stars like sexy cannibal Armie Hammer and Holocaust survivor Gina Carano. The end. Majors is also executive producing the film, which is pretty typical for big-name actors in big-name films. The term executive producer implies a lot of creative control, but it mostly just means you're fronting a lot of the money so that you can get royalties later. And money is all filmmaking is about anyway. Trust me, I went to school for this. And then Jonathan Majors fell out a window. Wait. Sorry, getting ahead of myself there. So our story takes place in Gaffney, South Carolina, home to some people and a large peach statue. If you're one of those people, or you're a walking, talking peach, maybe, I don't know what goes on in Gaffney, I've never been there. You might have seen some folks on the street nearby a film set holding some signs. You might even be a young, bright-eyed film industry hopeful who finally got an on-set job. I have no idea how difficult or not they are to find in South Carolina. Again, I've never been. Your cheeks are rosy and your soul is full of purpose. You woke up that day with a dream, and you'd go to bed with visions of long, boring hours of nothing, punctuated by short bursts of absolute terror. You know, how it actually feels to work on a film set.
Being in show business is like a dream. We're really lucky, aren't we?
I wish I was dead.
You were hired last minute to help reset a scene. Finally, a way to get your foot in the door. But when you get to set, you start to notice a few things that are odd. First, you notice it's a pretty small crew for a very high-budget movie. Not too much of a problem. Sometimes you only need a handful of people depending on the scene you're shooting. Then you see a bunch of men who definitely peaked in high school, bumbling across the film set, unsure of what exactly to do next. You then see a bunch of broken glass on the ground and assume that's what you need to clean up. But nothing could have prepared you for the reality of why you were hired so last minute, or why your job was cleaning broken glass in the first place. Because nobody bothered to tell you about anything that had happened. But don't worry, you're not alone. Allegedly, nobody knew anything about anything that was happening on this set ever. Especially that the broken glass was the result of Kang the Conqueror himself falling 6 feet out of a goddamn window and taking co-star JC Kilcoyne down with him. Surely, all of this was the experience of the anonymous crew member who confirmed in an interview with Deadline, quote, "When I got there, nobody mentioned anything about people falling out the window. It seemed weird to me."
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
I'm totally kidding about that whole backstory I made up for that dude. By the way, he's probably like 40. So, one production crew position that I do have a lot of experience in, both in and out of school, is as a first assistant director. It sounds flashy, and I guess it sorta is, because it turns your prefrontal cortex neurons into Best Buy employees who find out last minute they have to work on Black Friday. The fact that I did this job before I was prescribed Vyvanse is probably why I'm still a little traumatized by it. Basically, you're the head killjoy of the crew. Your biggest jobs are ensuring physical safety on set, preventing liabilities, and most importantly, getting to yell quiet on set and nagging the actual director that they are behind schedule. It's a thankless job, but holy shit, is it a necessary one. So this production, the Daily Wire one, presented by Bonfire Legend Studios, produced by Browse McGee and File Whisperer Dallas Saunier, they either had no idea what a first AD was and refused to learn, that would be very in character for them, or they managed to drag Pete Hegseth's more alcoholic nephew out of his floor futon and were like, "Look alive, son, we got a movie to make. Go get him, oh shit, he fell. Oh shit, he fell for real. Oh god, oh no. According to multiple sources, the accident was caused by the window being replaced by an unsecured sheet of tempered glass, which would be intentionally shattered later, and the actors would of course be replaced by stunt doubles for this scene. You know, it's one of those action movie stunts where they crash through a window. You know what I'm talking about. The problem is that there clearly were not enough safety measures in place to prevent this from happening, especially since the shot in question, which we were lucky enough to capture on camera, involved the actors falling towards the window, which would then assumedly cut to a different shot of the stunt doubles going through the window. The fact that the tempered glass was set up before flying in the stunt doubles means that not only was there a complete lack of communication, but they also totally borked the production schedule, which takes things like that into account. And then they either forgot about it after setting it up, or they were too lazy to replace it even though they knew it was there. And once again, the first AD, if there even was one, did nothing about it.
Good? I'm good. You good? I'm good, right? Did we shoot it? We shot it. Use it.
So then Jonathan Majors falls out a window. There we go. Now we're all caught up. He takes JC Kilcoyne down with him, and while Majors was unscathed, Kilcoyne needed stitches all over his hands. The Daily Wire really does hire actors who fell off. But the Daily Wire was not about to tarnish its reputation any further. They know damn well what failures they are, and they are not about to add any fuel to the fire that proves it. So Kilcoyne's reps immediately stepped in to do some damage control. JC is doing well and was taken care of immediately by production. He did not feel unsafe on set and continues to have a positive experience working on the project. Well, alrighty then. Johnny, got anything you want to add? I'm okay. I was happy to be on set and help tell the story. I am grateful for whoever is checking on me, the cast and crew for regarding our safety. It's going to be a great movie, and I am looking forward to fans seeing it.
A great man. I am doing great things, not just for me, but for my culture and for the world. That is actually the position I'm in.
Well, alrighty then. So I'm gonna pause my snark for just a moment and say that even with the best first ADs and most professional sets in the world, accidents are always a possibility, both on and off set. I will never forget the day I first AD'd a project, and the reason the Steadicam guy was late was because he was in a car accident where the car was overturned, and he still showed up to set. Thankfully, he and the equipment were somehow unscathed. Y'all, camera guys are built different, I swear. But set accidents can even be something as simple as tripping over an unsecured cord. Nobody's perfect, everyone makes mistakes. Filmmaking is one giant group project that's 90% legal paperwork and 10% dry shampoo, and you're always gonna have issues. But after this accident, a picket line showed up near the set. The one I mentioned earlier that you might have seen if you're a Gaffney resident or a walking talking peach. I don't know what happens there. It turns out this was just the tip of the iceberg of incompetence that you would absolutely expect from the Daily Wire's usual gang of idiots. And this was their breaking point. So it turns out, my good bitches, another thing they don't teach you in film school is that set safety is actually woke. Those union guidelines are just a bunch of SJW talking points fabricated by all those blacklisted commies back in the 50s. That's exactly why the Daily Wire is here to usher in a new era of filmmaking practices without an agenda. No, really, there literally was no agenda on the set of this film. As in, there weren't any call sheets. You know, the document given to every single person that's going to be on set that day or in the near future, with the time and the date and the location and the full shooting schedule and the full list of everyone who's there and contact information and parking info. You know, the little things. But again, this is filmmaking without those pesky Marxist agendas. Sounds like you're asking for a handout. What is this, Stalinist Russia? According to one crew member with decades of on-set experience, quote, "You couldn't find anybody. You didn't know who they were. So what's a film crew to do in the safety prohibition era? You gotta turn to the black market." Or at least that's what they referred to their impromptu crew lists as, trying to identify their colleagues themselves. Is this how genocide scholars feel viewing the world currently as they watch their years of studying the subject go down the drain because everyone is ignoring their expertise? Because I'm trying to make jokes about this, but the idea of not having call sheets on any film set, let alone a large budget motion picture, is making me break out in hives. Call sheets are mainly the responsibility of the second assistant director, so if they're not even gonna bother with a first AD, I guess it makes sense that they wouldn't even consider a second one. Giving a second anything a position of authority sounds like DEI to me. That same crew member mentioned that they witnessed no normal production activities on the set. I mean, that's the understatement of the century, but one of their examples included a lack of a unit production manager, aka the one who coordinates all the snacks and catering for a PA to pick up later. I mean, they mainly manage the budgeting and scheduling of the film, but we're well past that. This implies that they might not have even had coffee on set, which is an offense so heinous that even some of the very nice Mormons I know would have a thing or two to say about that, and coffee really isn't their cup of tea. Several crew members also confirmed that there were no meetings with department heads ahead of time, which is also not surprising at all. If they can't even be bothered to make a call sheet, they're not gonna bother speaking human words to the unwashed masses who are actually making the movie for them. Are you crazy? And they certainly won't allow these untouchables to speak with writer-director Kyle Rankin either. Wait a minute. Kyle Rankin. Where have I heard that name before? Oh, I should've known. So this noble film crew, braver than any Marine and could probably go toe-to-toe with an Avenger at this point, made an even worse discovery upon arrival at a different location. You know the phrase location, location, location? Me too. That phrase doesn't actually apply to filmmaking, but sometimes you really do find that perfect location to shoot in. It fits the exact vision you have in your head, and you're willing to do whatever it takes to get that spot. Your location manager will deal with most of that nonsense on your behalf anyways, but sometimes it simply doesn't work out for a number of reasons. If it costs too much to rent out, or there are too many limitations with what you can and can't do to the space, or it's right next to a sawmill filled with angry screaming cockatoos and the mics will almost definitely pick that up. Or, if you're the Daily Wire, you'll find a location so perfect, you're willing to set aside the warning from the building contractor that it's filled with asbestos. Now, if you're a reasonable producer with an iota of concern or care for the people making a movie for you, you would immediately reconsider and start looking for a new location. But these aren't reasonable producers, these are fascists. And if they're not gonna bother with assistant directors, call sheets, or food, it's a snowball's chance in hell that they're gonna bother testing a location for asbestos. When the crew was sent into the mesothelioma caves, like canaries in coal mines, they discovered an infestation of transphobic brain rot. Not the Daily Wire. I mean, they literally stumbled into a space contaminated by black mold. But just because the Daily Wire regularly microdoses it every time Matt Walsh looks into a camera with those cold, dead shark eyes, that doesn't mean normal members of society can function in, and I cannot possibly overstate this to you enough, deadly black mold. It wasn't until the entire crew pushed against these idiots that they finally agreed to a location change. Remember, comrades, there's strength in numbers. As one of the crew members put it, they really didn't care about the long-term effects on the crew. I don't even think it crossed their minds, because they're so inept. But the story isn't over yet, because the fun never starts on the action park of film sets. I really wish there were more details about the reports of props falling onto people, because one example included a rigged tree branch that fell on the goddamn set medic. You know, the one who's supposed to tend to people hit by rigged tree branches. A level of irony previously only seen with broken down tow trucks. The production had been using airsoft guns, but remember kids, safety is woke, and it gets in the way of all the bang bang pew pew come home bang my wife action. So the armorer and prop master were absolutely nowhere to be found, and did not provide a goddamn word to anyone asking about firearm safety protocols. I know the Daily Wire can't distinguish between fantasy and reality, but who's gonna tell them the Second Amendment doesn't apply to film production? The right spent so much time mocking Alec Baldwin for that absolutely tragic accident that resulted in the death of a cinematographer, they never stopped to think that it could happen to them. Or more likely, they did. They just didn't care. And we haven't even gotten to the lore surrounding their special effects supervisor Chris Bailey, who looks like one of the 7 people who attended Hetero Awesome Fest. A seasoned master of his craft, known for projects such as Nick Jonas, Chains. Chris was also the SFX coordinator on The Poison Rose, starring John Travolta and Morgan Freeman, before his arrest for illegal possession of explosive materials. Now, I know what you're thinking. Francis. He was the special effects and pyrotechnics coordinator for a movie. Of course he has explosives on hand. It's literally his job, and you would be correct. John Travolta is no stranger to 0% on Rotten Tomatoes film sets, but this one in particular caused him minor injuries when he was hit with sparks during an oopsie-doopsie special effects thing from, you guessed it, Christopher Elizabeth Bailey. Multiple other crew members had complained about Chris's Hegseth-y approach to pyrotechnics, but Chris wasn't actually stopped until prosecutors filed a claim on behalf of the Battlefield Earth starlet, which actually has 3% more on Rotten Tomatoes than The Poison Rose. Turns out, because of an unnamed prior conviction, Chris was, in fact, not legally allowed to handle explosions. He pled guilty, was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison, and then was given probation because, well, sounds about white. So, naturally, the other crew members had said something about Chris's prior convictions, but doing anything about it was the last thing on the Daily Wire's mind. These people spent millions putting a convicted felon in the White House. What makes you think they'd care about one using explosives around other human beings? Dallas Sonnier looked the other way when his old business partner touched kids. What makes you think he'd give a rat's ass about someone's face being potentially blown off? The less face you have, the less likely you'll be able to complain. I assume that was his reasoning, if there was any at all. Deadline reached out to Chris, and he did actually respond, claiming the incident was a paperwork infraction, and said that no Pyro was mishandled, as if justice.gov isn't a public source. So Jonathan Majors going from hitting women to hitting the pavement happened after all of the things I just described to you, and several crew members had already walked out. But this big kahuna was the breaking point for the production crew. IATSE initially tried to persuade the Daily Wire to sign a contract that would secure payment into the union's health and pension funds. After hilarity ensued for 5 weekaroos, on March 26th, 2026, IATSE officially called for a strike against this production. More than 60% of the crew had already signed union cards demanding a bargaining agreement via IATSE. Now, IATSE stands for International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, but I'm sure a film industry reject like Ben Shapiro thought IATSE was the new name for Nick Fuentes' fandom, and Dallas Sonnier probably assumed it was about Jews or something. It's a possible reason behind Dallas's ass response, who seemingly thought strikes were only something that happened in movies. Quote, "We are too busy being badasses, blowing shit up, flying helicopters, and killing movie terrorists to concern ourselves with 4 assholes with signs on the sidewalk and their illegitimate strike." See, when I was a kid, you would only hear a sentence like that when Family Guy satirized high school army recruiters.
What's up, y'all? I'm Sergeant Extreme, and I'm Major Awesome!
The everyone is 12 theory lends credence once again. And sure enough, filming continued, and the production quickly started replacing the striking crew. While IATSE is obviously cautioning people to not join the production so as to not cross the line, and just for their own quality of life, Dallas can call the strike illegitimate all he wants. But the production has received official communication from IATSE regarding the matter, especially since it's operating under a SAG-AFTRA contract, which stands for Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. But again, these people are mind-bogglingly stupid, have zero real industry experience, and have no idea how any of this shit works. Because after Deadline's initial report on the strike, Dallas continued his f***ass response, quote, "The entire industry's in freefall due to strikes, and now that their members are out of work, they're trying to sabotage the few people who are still producing. We don't negotiate with communists." Calm down, soldier boy. We don't negotiate with communists. Homie's out here LARPing as Joseph McCarthy when he looks like a human jewel pod. So, I'm sure you're wondering, maybe you are, I know I was, Francis, what movie could possibly be worth this mess? What could possibly be at stake for the Daily Wire here? Well, in the business, you see, industry folks will sign a non-disclosure agreement to keep any details about unfinished projects under wraps. But thankfully, either the producers were too dumb to know about NDAs, or the crew did sign them and just don't give a shit because they don't respect anyone behind this stupid f***ing movie. The crew members who spoke with Deadline did request anonymity before doing interviews, and that's only because the Daily Wire is rich and evil and petty enough to make the lives of working class people miserable. I don't think they'd have to worry about being blacklisted though, because that would imply that the Daily Wire has any sort of sway on Hollywood, which clearly they also apparently don't know what working titles are, which is how we were able to find out that this absolute dumpster fire of a production is, in fact, titled Run, Hide, Fight, Infidels, an anthology sequel to their absolutely vile excuse for a film in 2020, Run, Hide, Fight. And if you'd like to watch my breakdown of that movie, you can do so right up there. Apologies in advance for looking like absolute shit in that video. I've come a long way, but the Daily Wire clearly hasn't. So currently, it's unsure where the production stands. They are attempting to sweep this under the rug by hiring new crew members, which IATSE is actively warning against, and this all just proves what we already knew. Underneath all the culture war blustering and pretending like it's part of something that isn't actually real, their true intentions are simply taking collective power away from workers, which is actually kind of beautiful because in their attempts to paint everything as a left versus right issue, this just proves once again that it's a top versus bottom issue. If anything, the honesty is refreshing, because when major studio execs try to push people to the brink of losing their homes or any other dastardly schemes, "we don't negotiate with communists" is absolutely what they're thinking. They're just not stupid enough to say it out loud, like good old Dallas Sonnier. Film industry workers are no strangers to being accused of communism, which in my country means being able to survive normally. Crazy, I know. Those accusations are actually part of our history. A good deal of films you've seen from the golden age of cinema were written under pen names due to the Red Scare and epidemic of of blacklisting during McCarthyism. Ronald Reagan was actually one of the biggest McCarthy bootlickers and felt no remorse as he snitched on and sold out colleagues he had been working with for years. The charge? Holding left-wing views.
Question is, have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? I'm framing my answer in the only way in which any American citizen can frame his answer to a question which invades his, absolutely invades his right.
You refuse to answer that question. Is that correct?
I have told you that I will offer my beliefs, my affiliations, and everything else to the American public, and they will know where I stand, as they do from what I have written.
Stand away from the stand.
I have written for Americanism for many years, and I
stand away from the stand.
For the Bill of Rights,
and as we've seen in the past year or so, that practice hasn't actually gone away. We're just way stupider about it now. So I found some comments on this Deadline article from people who allegedly worked with Dallas on this project and others. Now, take these with a grain of salt because they are not officially verified. These are all alleged. But I challenge you to look me in the eye and tell me with a straight face that these stories are even remotely implausible, given everything I've told you. Worked with Dallas on a film. Flash blanks fired near the faces of performers. 2 actors had breakaway glass exploded into their eyes. Crew is left stranded on the side of a dark highway, and more. Never addressed any of these safety issues. The guy is a clown. I've worked with Dallas. He doesn't sign union agreements because he abuses crews and doesn't want to follow standard union safety protocols, pay OT, or respect turnarounds. Lots of interns and PAs doing what experienced crew members like Teamsters would usually do. Has never been a true producer, as he has an angel that funds these things. That rolls downhill to his inexperienced producing staff. Maybe this will get deleted, but this is the truth from working on an entire film with him. I was on this film, and reading the IMDb of the producers made me sad. From PA to producer in record time, and walking around like hotshot producers when they can't make the smallest decisions without Dallas's approval. It's laughable. The movies Dallas makes will always be shitty because he shadow directs them and has the worst creative instincts I have witnessed in my 20-year career. Thank God Dave Hall retired, or we would have been stuck with him. But it seems Dallas has found Hall's career doppelganger in first AD Jeremy Phoenix. Okay, so there was a first AD. Also, this is an insanely specific story. I would have a very hard time believing that this wasn't true. The only thing that matters to him is sticking to an unsafe and unrealistic schedule and yelling at the crew when they can't get the 10-page day. I've never been so glad to see the end of a project. Dallas has the emotional intelligence of Eric Cartman. None of this is actually surprising, but boy, it does make for a good story. A film about the making of this film would probably be miles more entertaining than whatever school or slop they're cranking out this time. Anyway, before I turn the camera off to treat my hives, let's check out some winning comments from the last video. Benjamin Brahman 214 says, "Thank God there's always room for Jello because the rest of the dead Kennedys have spines made of it. It makes my heart so happy how many of you guys are also DK fans. I also met Jello like 10 years ago, and we did take a picture together, and I would show you guys if I wasn't out of drag, but we did have matching belt buckles, so." 42 says, "He branched out into dog products and didn't even think to sell dog whistles. I can't believe I didn't think to make that joke. Damn, that's good." Skio says, "Tucker Carlson's default expression is that of a dog having just been shown a basic sleight of hand magic trick." You too could be featured in the next video. Leave a comment below. I will pick my favorite ones and give you a shout out next time. But if you would like to guarantee your name be featured at the end of every video, please consider joining my Patreon. If you join any of the membership tiers that are conveniently named after Fallout protagonists, your name will be mentioned at the end of every video. You might get some other cool stuff like access to my Discord, behind the scenes content on how I make my wigs, ad-free and uncensored versions of my videos. So if you love my content and my drag, you can support this channel directly by clicking the link to my Patreon in the description box. And if you'd like to give your money to a much more worthy cause, the link to my friend Rawya's Chuffed campaign is in the description. Even just sharing the link is also extremely helpful if you're unable to donate. If you would like to see me simp for my favorite game characters and get visibly frustrated in real time, please follow me on Twitch. But if you have better things to do on the weekends, you can catch all of my favorite streams on my brand new gaming channel, Queen Coke Francis Live. I post new streams there weekly, and I will regularly be holding polls in my community tab on what you'd like to see me play next. And if you'd like to see even more of my clown mug elsewhere, please consider following me on Instagram or Blue Sky. My handle for all of the above is @QueenCokeFrancis. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't done so already, after the extremely incompetent first AD yells "quiet on set" and the director yells "action," show everyone how ready for your close-up you are by going ahead and unzipping your pants and dick slapping those like and subscribe buttons as hard as you can. Thank you again to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this video, and thank you to all of my patrons and subscribers who keep this channel going and have been helping my new friends in Gaza. We cannot possibly express our gratitude more. And of course, as always, until next time, can you see that they're holographic? You can only kind of see under certain lights, and it looks cool, I promise.